Dandavat Pranam. The time is 11 o'clock in Chiang Mai. And interestingly, different times in other parts of the world. And I think Chiang Mai just coming together. Are you able to hear?
Yes, yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Loud and clear and joyfully.
Hi.
Jai Srila Bhakti Sudhir Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Srila Bhakti Bimal Avadhut Maharaj there in Chiang Mai ki Jai. All the
Jai Srila Bhakti Ranjan Madhusudan Maharaj ki Jai.
All the assembled devotees, as Gurudev would say, all the assembled devotees in Chiang Mai and around the world joining with us, Maharaj.
About that bled, I'm thinking of something.
Aha.
Because at the Kolkata airport, which was formerly the Dum Dum airport, but became the Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose International Airport. There's, when you enter, like here in Thailand, there's a diorama representation of the churning of the milk ocean by the Devas and Asuras and Kurmavatar. There's a murti of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, the so-called freedom fighter of Bengal. He's really the most important political figure in the Bengali world, you'd say, revered by everyone. And his saying, there's a legend on the murti, and it says, "Give me your blood and I'll give you freedom." Right? So Gurudev would reference that and say, Guru Maharaj would say, "Give me your blood and I'll give you devotion." So when you say assembled devotees, I think of they've given their blood, and getting that devotion, and that's a wonderful thing, although everybody looks really scared right now.
Yes, Maharaj, we're in your capable, most capable hands, Maharaj.
We're ready to proceed. Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Sri Guru Gaura Gandharva Govindangringanaisaha Vande Prasadato Yesham Savaramba Sumankara Gauravag Vigraham Vande Gaurangam Gaurabhaivavam Gaur Sankirtanomatam Gaur Karunya Sundaram Guru Rupa Harim Gauram Radha Ruchi Ruchavritam Nityam Nomi Navadipe Nama Kirtana Nartanai Srimad Prabhupadam Boja Madhupebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. This is the disappearance day of Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the founder, Acharya of Sri Gaudiya Math and its missions, and all the grand guru of all the subsequent offspring of Sri Gaudiya Math, like the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Math, and other missions headed by his disciples. And the younger section of devotees might wonder, well, what is our real connection with him? We have our Gurudev, and he's brought Krishna consciousness to us. Is this something, just some perfunctory honor that's being given, or is it something that's, relevant to our situation? And the fact of the matter is, if it was not for Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, none of us would be assembled here right now. We would know nothing about Krishna consciousness. Because we could say the same thing about His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, that if Srila Prabhupada had not come out of India and gone to America and subsequently all over the world spreading Krishna consciousness, no one would have any, outside of India, would have any real connection with Krishna consciousness, including the present-day members of Chaitanya Saraswati Mat, because it's through Srila Prabhupada that we heard the glories of Srila Guru Maharaj and Srila Gurudev. But why did Prabhupada do what he did? As perhaps addressed in one of the numerous pranams written by Srila Guru Maharaj in praise of Srila Saraswati Thakur, and favorite to Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, sang it everywhere, popularized it in Gaudiya Mat. Nikila Bhuvana Maya, Chinavich Chinakartri, Vibhura Bahula Mrigya Mukti Mohanta Datri, Shitilita Viriraga Radhesha Dvani, Vilasatu Hridi Nityam Bhakti Siddhanta Bani. This particular pranam is so perfect that Guru Maharaj himself said, I think if my Guru Maharaj was, alive and heard this, he would think that he'd been captured in a cage of poetry. Even that description is poetically beautiful. And he said, like the Royal Bengal tiger, he'd be in a cage, and then everyone gets to come and see that glorious, divine personage. So he's saying here, in just these few lines, Srila Guru Maharaj has captured Srila Saraswati Thakur. He's saying that, that he's taken the position of a devastator. And he said, like dropping atom bombs on Mayavad and, karma, gyan, all of these things with his super Siddhanta. But here I want to, and how he slackened the rules and regulation. He didn't emphasize that to bring people in connection. Although he himself, we see, is the perfect picture of gravity and of following perfectly everything. In introducing others, he was willing to ease things, right? Again, otherwise, how could we all be here today? And we know from Srila Guru Maharaj, when he heard that, and Guru Maharaj is a Bhattacharya Brahmin, we're telling Gurudev, say Brahmanpur, and Guru Maharaj is also a Sanskrit-speaking family to that degree, and they're Bhattacharyas, they're like guru by caste. That's their occupation, is to be gurus, right? Bhattacharya. And Guru Maharaj, we know, those who have interacted with him, how perfect he is in following everything. And on a walk in, perhaps in Bombay, Srila Saraswati Thakur was outlining his Western preaching program and letting the devotees know how their campaign was going to be conducted. And he said he envisioned that near the Mat there would be a youth hostel for foreigners, and it would be catered by non-vegetarian restaurants, right, to make it comfortable for those people. And Guru Maharaj was shocked to hear this. And he said, I think the end result of that will be to introduce contamination into our section. And he said, Srila Saraswati Thakur's words were like, lightning striking his heart. And he said, oh, you don't know. He said, I decided this 10,000 years ago. Who can make such a statement? He didn't say, no, I've been thinking about this for a long time. Well, in a sense, he did. How long? 10,000 years. And that's when he said, you have to have, if you're going to preach in this modern world, you have to employ the principle of Vaikuntha Vritti. And here, the word Vaikuntha meaning unlimited, or in this context, unlimitedly generous and liberal and bringing others in connection with the lotus feet of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, who in another prayer, Guru Maharaj said, is similar to what the prayer read by Paramananda Prabhu and Madhusudan Maharaj from Srila Gurudev, the kind of faith he had in the lotus feet of his guru, saying, I will put them all in a boat and take them to the Vaikuntha world. That famous prayer in the Bhagavatam, 2 verses that end each one with Bande Mahapurushate Charanaravindam. One says, Bhavabdi Potam, compares the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu to a boat. And Srila Guru Maharaj in another pranam says, Srila Saraswati Thakur, his only suffering on his part was the suffering condition of humanity. And he wanted that from people who were diving in deep into an ocean of whimsical activity. Because sometimes when we hear ocean of nescience, it's kind of like an abstract term. What does that really mean? You know, even the word nescience or an ocean of ignorance. But here, Guru Maharaj identifies it more precisely. And then I thought, aha, yes, this makes sense. You know, of whimsical activities, wasting our time, endlessly distracted by whimsical activities. And he's saying, so, and deep into that ocean. And if anything, it's gotten deeper in the modern world with all of its distractions. And so he's saying, and what is he doing? He's pulling them out of that plane and putting them on the boat of the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu, and that boat is taking them to the spiritual world. So in the last line of that verse, it says, Vilasatu Hridi Nityam Bhakti Siddhanta Bani. Guru Maharaj is saying, after he's identified what are these unique traits, qualities, characteristics of Srila Saraswati Thakur and his teachings, and saying, then may the divine voice, Dibya Bani, Vilasatu Hridi Nityam Bhakti Siddhanta Bani. His name is Saraswati Thakur. So Guru Maharaj, with his poetic expertise, who Saraswati, the goddess of speech, Vag Devi. So he interprets Saraswati as his, Bhakti Siddhanta Vani, his voice, his instructions. So he's saying, Vilasatu Hridi Nityam, may his voice, full of these intense Krishna conscious instructions and order, play forever upon our hearts. So that voice was what was playing upon the heart of Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada in Vrindavan, that would not allow him to just sit there. And that beautiful, what more could you ask for than to be at the Radha Damodar temple, within Dandavat distance of the Bhajan Kutir and Samadhi of Srila Rupa Goswami, Jiva Goswami, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, and the deities of Srila Jiva Goswami. And having dedicated his whole life to Krishna consciousness, he could have sat there and justified just taking Krishna Nam, going deep into the Bhagavatam and Charitamritam, and there would have been no fault on his part. But the voice of Srila Saraswati Thakur playing in his heart, and what is that like? You must take this Krishna consciousness to the Western countries. Right? So, and what is Krishna consciousness really? We could say the shared heart of Srimati Radharani. She is the ultimate personification of Krishna consciousness, the reservoir of all Krishna consciousness, and he is her agent in this plane. And he's telling all of his disciples the importance of preaching Krishna consciousness. He was not interested in how do you say, assembling a group of bead counters. Like we'll all get together and count on our beads, you know, so many names of Krishna. That was not his mission, right? Guru Maharaj in the prayers just sung so beautifully, Kripaya Hari Kirtana Murti Dharam. What a beautiful line. Kripaya Hari Kirtan Murti. He's the Krishna Katha Murti, the personification of Krishna Katha. He himself said, what is the only shortage in this world? The only famine that I recognize? Krishna Katha Durvika. There's a shortage of real talks about Krishna. And that's why the people in the world are suffering. Like in that Gopi Gita, Tava Katamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibir Iditam Kalmasha Apanam Shravana Mangalam Srimadataram Bhuvi Granantite Buridajana. When Mahaprabhu heard this verse from the Gopi Gita from the lips of Prataparudra Maharaj, he jumped up and embraced him and said, yes, those who give us talks of Krishna, they're the real humanitarians, the real altruists. They're the people who are doing some beneficial work in this world. And so that was the mission of Srila Saraswati Thakur. And as Guru Maharaj identified, then why did he, as Swami Maharaj could not deny that voice, and that voice of Saraswati Thakur is what propelled him to cross the ocean and spread Krishna consciousness in America and subsequently worldwide. But how did Saraswati Thakur come to make such a pronouncement and such demands of his disciples? In one sense, this is a real, like cliffhanger. It's so close to, like, in one sense, almost not happening, right? Because Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, as identified in the Bhaktivinoda Viraha Dasakam of Guru Maharaj, saying, when he descends in the world, the whole Gaudiya Sampradaya has just gone off into ill repute. Things that practically cannot even be discussed. And the yogis, the karmi, everyone was just polluted by mundane motive. And even the Gaudiya line, the Rupa Nuga line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was now in ill repute. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur initiated this course correction. Guru Dam, Grantadam, Goradam, Namadam, Muna, Bhakti Badam, Bhakti Vinodam, Guru Dam, Grantadam, Gora, Namadam Muda, Bhakti Dam, Buridam Bande, Bhakti Vinodam Muda. Then Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives all the proper scriptures. He reveals the abode of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then the spiritual cartography of Navadip Dham. He gives, Sri Radha Padasevanam Ritamaho Tadatu Misho, the prospect of Radha Dasham. He gives the holy name of Krishna. He gives everything, but he has a handful of disciples. Sometimes Guru Maharaj would say 5 to 7. It's just unthinkable. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has like a handful of disciples. And there, for the most part, we understand what Gurudev would describe as, simple-hearted Vaishnavas who had somehow the inconceivable good fortune to come in connection with Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But they were not, preachers of, or distributors of the wealth of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And for that, Guru Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in a sense, had to create that person. Right? As when, and Guru Maharaj Gurudev would say, what brought Srila Saraswati Thakur into this world? Attracted to the incomparable wealth that was there in the melted heart of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. That's what brought Srila Saraswati Thakur down to this plane. And as Mahaprabhu appeared in Navadvip and his final pastimes were in Puri, Srila Saraswati Thakur, he appears in Puri, and his final pastimes are in Navadip, Mayapur Navadip, right? And we know he appears on the, like if he appear, first I should say that, it's told mystically in a Puranic legend that the grace, the mercy, the savior of the world will appear in the east, and it's taken to and Puri. And so they say, that means Jagannath, that he will appear there, and by the merciful distribution of his prasad and his darshan, particularly Rath Yatra, he will save the world. So Jagannath is the savior of the world, and it's shown here in these Puranic references. But, and as interpreted by Guru Maharaj and the disciples of Srila Saraswati Thakur, saying, yes, and the savior will appear in Puri. And who is that savior? Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And the Kripaya Hari Kirtana Murti Dhanam Dharanita Bharadharaka Gaura Janam. One of Mahaprabhu's own men will descend, and he'll save the world. And Janakadika Vatsalya Snigdha Padam. And although his picture, we see the personification of gravitas, Guru Maharaj is saying, he's more affectionate than your own mother and father, because he has your soul's, your heart and soul's interest at heart, you can say. So that Saraswati Thakur, if he were to appear any nearer to the Jagannath temple, he would have been born on the altar, right? If you see where it is when we go there, and Srila Bhakti Dayata Madhav Maharaj established a very nice temple there, and we go there on our parikrama, and that we'll do make a note, when we do the Navadip Dham parikrama online, we will also do later at Jagannath's Rath Yatra festival time, and that'll be on our parikrama. And there we know Bhagavati Devi, his divine mother, brings the child out at the time of Rath Yatra as a presentation to Jagannath. And we're told, you know, the garland falls from Jagannath and they place it on the child, the indication of his pastimes in the future. And but the family of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they go from Jagannath Puri to other places. And in his final days of service, Bhaktivinoda Thakur asked to be transferred to Krishna Nagar. And that's where he discovers the appearance place of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and reveals that to the world and inaugurates these festivals. But there needs to be some transference of the seva. And this always will be there to the next generation. So, and really it is to activate the distributor of the wealth of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is asking Bimal Prasad, as he was known, to take up the service, what we call, the seva, to be the sevite at the Yogpit. And their deities, and Saraswati Thakur is reluctant. This is what I meant by cliffhanger. He's reluctant to do that. It's not that he says, yes, of course. He doesn't want to take up that. We're here in seclusion. He's chanting 3 lakhs of Krishna Nam every day. That's like 192 rounds. Deeply absorbed in the internal world. He's a Parshada of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As we told, Guru Maharaj said, they're only adopting a mask persona to be in this plane. He has very little to do with this world and has no interest in this world. And so in a way of like chiding, a little chastisement and teasing when he's reluctant to accept that seva. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, oh, you've become a nirvisheshvadi, which means those are the Mayavadis who believe God doesn't have a form, right? And he's saying that's what was the word? Too much trouble for you, right? To deal with the form of the Lord. So it's Bhaktivinoda Thakur's way of like prodding him a little bit. And then when Srila Saraswati Thakur understood, oh, this is the desire of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur that I will come out and take up this service, then he happily accepted that service. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur left the world, but Srila Saraswati Thakur's nature is of a recluse, you know, of a Nirjan Bhajananandi. That's what makes it all the more interesting too. Srila Bhakti Sudhir Goswami Maharaj is always like the opposite, moving in a big crowd, huge family. If you can fit, you know, 4 people, 6 people in a car, he has 12. You know, like his veranda's full day and night of something. And here's the person who's now supposed to spread this all over the world lives in utter seclusion and doesn't mix with anyone. How's that going to happen? You know, so that really gives opportunity for so many others, actually. So Srila Saraswati Thakur is living in the jungle of Mayapur and realizing, though, that he has this mission given to him by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And gradually, and Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj leaves the world, and that brings him in connection with Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj and Sakhi Charan Babu, and he starts preaching to them about Mahaprabhu's culture and divine civilization. And Guru Maharaj said he heard from Sakhi Charan Babu, who was one of the original, because you have Tirtha Maharaj, Sakhi Charan Babu, Srila Keshava Maharaj, and his sister and brother. His sister would make luchi, these nice white puris for Srila Saraswati Thakur, and bring like drop off some prasadam for him to take. And one man who was visiting thought like, oh, that's a little, this lady is bringing you, like, and you're accepting? And Gurudev said, Saraswati Thakur said to him, no, I'm very liberal. He said, what to speak of her? He said, I'm so liberal, I would take prasadam from you. So we see also he had a very wry sense of humor. But so he's there, and Sakhi Charan Babu said, we were astonished when he would preach, he would be pounding his fist on the table, and the blood would be rushing to his face, and his face would blossom like a pink lotus flower, like one petal white, pink, white, pink, white, pink. And they said, so beautiful, but like a very intense lotus flower. Blood rushing, and this intense passion for preaching Krishna consciousness. Guru Maharaj said so many times, all the time he's talking about Krishna. Even in ordinary dealings, they had some legal matters, and he's preaching to this lawyer, and it's completely unrelated to what they're doing. And the lawyer starts saying, he said, like, are you trying to convert me or something? You know, and Saraswati Thakur said, yes, I am. He said, and if you could like pay attention, you know, give what they used to call your undivided attention for 5 minutes, the conversion would take place. And then you'd realize it's not really a conversion. This is your heart's inner wealth. But even in those instances, he's always preaching. So in that way, he began Sri Gaudiya Math alone from the jungle of Mayapur. And he once said, I started this alone in the jungle of Mayapur, and now I've got 500 men who say what I say. right? He trained everyone so perfectly to represent the teachings of Sri Gaudiya Math and to distribute the wealth of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So for, say, 10 years at least, in a very strong way, there was the missionary activities of Sri Gaudiya Math spreading all over India. And his disciples were highly educated Sanskritians with, sanskar, very high background, and such as Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada. And on that note, just to say, why Srila Bhakti Sundar Govindadev Goswami Maharaj started saying Bhagawan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. First, when we heard from Prabhupada Swami Maharaj, he'd say, why did they call him Prabhupada? That who many Prabhus, exalted personalities, take shelter at his feet, then he's Prabhupada. So who more deserving of the title of Prabhupada than Srila Saraswati Thakur? One governor of Bengal, he said, after his experience of Saraswati Thakur and his disciples, he said, I felt I was in the presence of Jesus and the 12 apostles. So he thought of it like that. There's Srila Saraswati Thakur with Goswami Maharaj. In the center is Governor John Anderson of Bengal. He said that's what he thought. Like, here's Jesus, he's Jesus, and his disciples are the 12 apostles. But Srila Gurudev noticed as he traveled all over the world that although it's customary when you say Prabhupada within the confines of Gaudiya Math, it means Saraswati Thakur. He said, now when you say Prabhupada, everyone in the world is thinking of Swami Maharaj. So he said, I wanted to give some singular distinction to Srila Saraswati Thakur. So I started saying Bhagawan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Because Bhagawan, in a word, means God, but also some extraordinary divine personality. So then someone thought, well, why is Govinda Maharaj doing, this is some novel thing, it's something new, and is that entirely appropriate? We're consulting others to see the appropriateness of this, conferring this sort of title. And remember, whatever Srila Govinda Maharaj does, it's well thought out, it's been vetted, he's gone over so many things internally, he doesn't whimsically do something like this. And Guru Maharaj said of him, he's so perfect in his representation of Srila Saraswati Thakur that you could take him to be one of the direct disciples of Srila Saraswati Thakur. But when it came to the ear of Govinda Maharaj that some were objecting to this, Bhagawan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he pulled out Bhagavatam from Guru Maharaj's own library, and you open up that Bhagavatam and you see on one page from the pen of Srila Guru Maharaj, his own handwriting. He said, please read what it says there. And it says, Bhagawan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. That gentleman was silenced. The case was put to rest. So that Saraswati Thakur, as he's distributing the wealth of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he wants that his preachers will also distribute that wealth. We know ultimately done by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. But Guru Maharaj would say of him, that picture we see there before us, the famous picture that there, they used to say, he shows with the beard is like the Chaturmasya Tapasya, and also the half lotus, so the position of a yogi, and the glass of the Jnani, and so he's like, it's showing that the devotee trumps all of them, is in the highest position. But when we were presenting Search for Sri Krishna to Srila Guru Maharaj, and we put that picture there, I was thinking, what should the caption be? And although it wasn't in the book, I thought, because normally you would say something like, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, founder Acharya of Sri Gaudiya Math, and that would be the proper way of doing that. But this was the first book of Guru Maharaj we were making, and some inspiration came. So I, you know, a little bold and reckless, I put this caption. And we're presenting the book to Guru Maharaj, and he's asking us, and what does it say there? And I said, and I was like, all right, here's the moment of truth, you know. It says, he declared totalitarian war against Maya and even all other existing theistic conceptions. Right? And then I'm looking for a reaction of Guru Maharaj. And Guru Maharaj starts smiling and he said, if you did not say anything else, that our Guru Maharaj would be properly represented there. And I went like, whew. But of course, those words were from Srila Guru Maharaj. And he's telling us, extracting the real substance of this Hari Kirtan Murti. What is Kirtan according to Srila Saraswati Thakur? He says, Kirtan means a fight. And you say, no, I have a Sanskrit dictionary here. I beg to differ. It says Kirtan means a particular type of glorification of the Supreme Lord. How can he say, no, Kirtan means a fight? He's giving us a living interpretation. It's not sufficient just to remain on your own and you're engaging in some kind of kirtan. He's saying, no, it means making propaganda in favor of Krishna conception and the line of Mahaprabhu, that Krishna conception will duel with the Mayic misconception and emerge victorious. That sort of concept is coming from Srila Saraswati Thakur. And he's instilling this in his disciples. So as he's serving them, we're told that when he's visiting the printing press of Sri Gaudiya Math, and as we can read now, the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Charitamritam with Amrita Pravaha Bhasya commentary, and his Chaitanya Bhagavat commentary and his books, he's in the printing press. Just by looking over the proofs, devotees said that they saw waves of ecstatic symptoms playing upon his divine form. Right? Just overlooking the proofs at the press. But he is always suppressing that. Guru Maharaj said that he's meticulously if like a tear of ecstasy is coming to him, he's suppressing that and meticulously removing that because he does not want to mislead his disciples. He said particularly when he would hear the verse of Srila Ranganath Das Goswami, Ashavare Amrita Sindhu Mai Katanchit Kalo Mayati Gamita Kila Sampratam Hi Tvam Chet Kripam Naivakimme Prane Brajena Chabororu Bhakarinapi, expressing Das Goswami's his heart's aspiration for Radha Dasyam, service at the holy lotus feet of Srimati Radharani. And in the absence of that, saying his life has become meaningless. This verse, Guru Maharaj said, when he was discussing that with a select few of his superior devotees in private, he would start crying uncontrollably, wailing, expressing this verse. That is what is in the heart of Srila Saraswati Thakur. Why Gurudev gave the name in Govardhan of Sri Dvaita Das Sevakunj. Because in Sri Gaudiya Math, they sing this verse, Sri Barsha Banavi Devi Dvaita Dvaitaya Kripabdaye. Barsha Banavi Devi, that means Srimati Radharani, and Dvaita Das, the one who is most dear to her. So Srila Guru Maharaj, in his prayers of separation from Srila Saraswati Thakur, he reveals that time came on the eve, January 1st of 1937, from the eve of December 31st, 1936, then at 5:30 a.m. that morning. And the way Guru Maharaj describes it is because of the divine pastimes of Radha and Govinda, that Srimati Radharani at that time of the morning awakening is feeling separation from her beloved Nayana Mani Manjari. What insight Srila Guru Maharaj has. Normally, we're thinking of separation in the inverse. We don't think what Guru Maharaj revealed in Loving Search for the Lost Servant about Krishna's feeling on the other side. Here, Srimati Radharani feeling separation from Nayana Mani Manjari means Srila Saraswati Thakur couldn't tolerate another moment of separation from her dear servitor and took her up into that plane. That's how Guru Maharaj records that. That's his beginning sloka. And then so many others follow. So that's Srila Saraswati Thakur, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur found in him the agent for distribution of his divine wealth. And Srila Saraswati Thakur found his agent of distribution for the worldwide Krishna consciousness movement. And His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. But like Mahaprabhu, there's his external preaching, and then the internal aspect of divine culture. So Srila Saraswati Thakur in that Gaudiya Math, then he sees some poetry amidst the other proofs, and he sees the verse, Sri Gauranumatam Swarupa Viditam Rupagrajanadritam Rupadye Pariveshitam Ragugunai Ashwaditam Sevitam Srimad Jiva Jaya Varakshitam Sukha Shiva Brahmana Samanitam Sri Radha Padasevanamritam Aho Tadatam Isho Bhavan. He's looking at this and he's saying, who wrote this? And one of the devotees says, Sridhar Maharaj. And he said, no, Sridhar Maharaj has not written this. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written this through him. And why is he so drawn to it? Because there in a nutshell, he's saying, what Mahaprabhu came down to deliver in this world is only understood fully by Swarup Damodar. And that very divine substance is worshipped by Sanatan and distributed by Rupa. And it's tasted and enhanced by Raghunath Das and distributed to the world in form of Chaitanya Charitamritam by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, protected by Jiva Goswami and Baladev Vidyabhushan. And Brahma, Shiva, Sukha, Narada, and Uddhava, they're aspiring for a drop of that divine substance. It's like building to a crescendo. Then what is it? Sri Radha Padasevanamritam Aho. Aho Tadatum Isho Bhavan. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, this is your gift to the world. As I said, what is Krishna consciousness? But the shared heart of Srimati Radharani. Right? That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that's the gift of Mahaprabhu. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is reiterating this and distributing this all over the world to the order of Saraswati Thakur, to his followers. And when Srila Saraswati Thakur sees this, he's going, oh, soon I will leave the world, but now I've found what I came to give and distribute. Someone has received that. And that man is Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj. So 24 hours before this time, his disappearance, Srila Saraswati Thakur called Srila Guru Maharaj to his disappearance bed and asked him to sing the Narottam Thakur song, Sri Rupa Manjari Pada, expressing the aspiration of all of those and the Rupa Nuga line. Sri Rupa Raghunatha Pade Jarash, as Kaviraj Goswami says, and the lectures of Saraswati Thakur would end. He said, may we forever aspire to be dust of the lotus feet of Rupa and Raghunath. And he wanted to hear that from Srila Guru Maharaj. So this day is of extra special significance to all the members of Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat, because in this instance, Srila Saraswati Thakur recognized who was carrying the current of the internal wealth of Srila Saraswati Thakur, otherwise known as the Rupanuga line, and the Rupanuga Dara, and that current alive and well, and Srila Bhakti Rakak, Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj. So, Hare Krishna, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Tirubha Mahamahutavati Ki Jai. Srila Bhakti Bimal Avadhut Maharaj, will you please address the devotees.
Jai, Jai Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Bhagavan Thakur Ki Jai, Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai, Shri Gurudev Ki Jai, Shri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. So, as Goswami Maharaj perfectly link Saraswati Thakur's life and precepts towards our mission. There's so many great acharyas and so many great teachers that Saraswati Thakur initiate their spiritual path and path of their disciples that we can't even count them properly, because there are so many Gaudiya Mats and people that been inspired by Krishna consciousness. So we don't even, it just become like a big tree. However, that tree, like described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, like Mahaprabhu tree, is also Saraswati Thakur tree, has, you know, particular branches, like one of them Srila Prabhupada. And Guru Maharaj is definitely another one which we belong to, but we trying to see in that branch very exclusive line of Saraswati Thakur precepts, ideas, and preaching concept, which that's why our mat is called Chaitanya Saraswati Mat. And Guru Maharaj is commenting idea, what is the Saraswati? We know Saraswati River, it's just like interesting in certain shastras, Ganga, you know, considered to Ida, Moon, Yamuna is Surya, Pingala, and Sushumna is Saraswati, which means hidden. Sushumna means hidden, but the most important one. What is that most important one? In the sense that the Saraswati message is internal, hidden, internal wealth of divine love of Goloka Vrindavan, coming through Mahaprabhu, coming. Why is it hidden? Because it's not, although it's obvious to everyone who have theistic mind, but it's also inaccessible. It's inaccessible to world of exploitation. Therefore, Saraswati Thakur in his own life is considered to be a super strict follower of Mahaprabhu and Vedic principles. Such a follow-up he had that in certain way he was absolutely impressing not only mundane people, also spiritual people, because at that time there were so many so-called the followers of Mahaprabhu, you know, in their own way, mixing Gaudiya Vaishnavism with, you know, Tantric or any other common misconception of Kali Yuga's perception. Therefore, Mahaprabhu has been misinterpreted as, you know, something divine, but not pure, not clear, because it's just basically when you mix milk with urine and then offering everybody some amazing pure substance, you know, it's not a very tasty product. Therefore, Saraswati Thakur, he separates all this misconception from illusory, as Guru Maharaj said, illusory environment, from illusory environment to give very clear and pure what is the message of Mahaprabhu. And if we look at the way it's descent, it's quite interesting that, you know, we know about Rup Sanatan and other great devotees that kept Mahaprabhu philosophy and increased for a particular group of followers, which we should remember, that was a very exclusive group of followers. But when we really look at desire of Mahaprabhu, as Mahaprabhu expressed himself that holy names will be chanted at every time and village, that has been done only by Saraswati Thakur endeavor, and he technically armas. Just like, you know, when you form your army, you have to get the weapons, the uniform, the way, the ammunition, the way you do things. Otherwise, it's not clear. So he technically create, in the beginning, he called his organization Bhaktivinoda Asana, like one of his names he said, because he was like very firm to the way Bhaktivinoda Thakur would represent an asana, means sitting place or speaking place. Technically, his idea was Bhaktivinoda Asana, that I will explain people Krishna consciousness from position of my guru Bhaktivinoda, which not always is his father, because Bhaktivinoda had 9 children, and all of them on some level were, as children means sons and daughters, and all of them were connecting with Vaishnavism on one level. But Saraswati Thakur never really considered his father as a a physical connection. He always saw Bhaktivinoda as some kind of a divine personality which had special power. But later he changed in the Gaudiya Math because for several reasons. Number one, Math is a name where, like monastery or like Vat, what they say, means like where brahmachari, sannyasi people, or people who's only exclusively dedicated to religious spiritual life, not anything else, which means, there's nothing else there. If you want a spiritual thing, just very clear, you have to go there. And Gaudiya means, because the Gaudiya, or there's a very mystic aspect of this name, Gaudiya, because it's also in some way connect with the sweetness, which means Gaudiya Vaishnavism is the most tasteful Vaishnavism, Gur, the most tasteful Vaishnavism. But when Saraswati Thakur established his Yogapith Math, although Bhaktivinoda Thakur opened one where Mahaprabhu was born, but Saraswati Thakur opened another one. And, to me, I don't really know whole history, but my understanding would be that there would be some dignitaries that would take care of that Yogapith Math. And Saraswati, originally, and Saraswati Thakur need to be established something of his own, where he would not compromise with other dignitaries. Although, everybody would accept him as a follower of Bhaktivinoda, and he's even, son and great acharya. But what was his idea of Yogapith? Actually, the reason I think he would love domes and full dome for 2 reasons. Because if you really look at his temple, it's a circular temple. And his temple is not very much like, when we're talking about, like, especially when you deal with ISKCON guys, it's the Vedic culture, the Vedic this, Vedic that, the South India, this, that. But Saraswati Thakur weren't thinking this particular way. If you look at his original temple, where Vinod, the deity is established, which is extremely beautiful, and obviously connect with Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you would see that this temple is a circular temple, which is normally not very common thing in Vedic style, but you'll see every corner of the temple would be the deity of Vaishnava Acharya, the Nibaraka, Ramanuja, Vishnu Swami. So what he's tried to explain in this, because, it's all conceptual, like his thing was not about, hey, let's build temple look like this or like that. His idea was like, what is the concept? So the concept that he was thinking of, you will enter to Krishna consciousness, and by circulating around, because it's all about parikrama, it's a common thing, you would circulate each Vaishnava Acharya, and you would understand what Mahaprabhu is brought in his teaching is incorporation of every Vaishnava Acharya, which is like devotional service, follower of Gopi, singing particular songs and bhajans, are particular way of surrender. Like, because all of their Vaishnavas been teaching Vaishnavism, as we say in Thailand, same, but different. They had their own emphasis on one particular way of devotional service. But we know that Mahaprabhu is his unique representation of Krishna consciousness is basically incorporating all the devotional service in such way that it will transcend even a traditional Vedic culture. Because if we look at traditional Vedic culture, and if we study the other acharyas, then we see it has a lot of restrictions, especially when it comes to caste and position, like, the traditional Brahmanas, they would tell you, well, you have to many millions of lives follow the Vedic culture. Then you'll take a birth as a Brahmin family and, connecting with the proper initiations, you'll be able to worship Narayan, Vishnu, etc. What to speak about Krishna? So, but in Saraswati Thakur approach, the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, he's giving very great example. After praising Brahminical culture and Vedic culture, showing people that I'm not somebody who does not revere or respect that. In fact, he was an incredible scholar of astronomy, astrology. At certain points, Saraswati Thakur were offered to become, a professor of astronomical and astrological, because that previously used to be one thing, in, Calcutta, and he has his own school. So he was great mathematician, because without mathematics, you can't really understand, calculate things. He was a great astrologer, which means he knew, understand, and even he comply himself his own pandika, using a particular calendar and calculations. Then he deeply studied all different shastras, because when they say he was a student of Sanskrit college, but they were very amazed with him. Although he was a brilliant student, he would not be interesting some just common discipline. He would enter the college library and would read book after book after book. And many times when he would assisting he wrote one biography of the king, local king, Bengali king. But one of his actually way of serving this king family, which really trusts him, is to enter the library, which was like incredible collection of different holy scriptures. So, so every pretense he would use in his life to really go deeper, study scriptures. But finally, his conclusion of the scriptures were very interesting. As we say, especially talking to Maharaj many times, once you start reading many scriptures, you normally get screwed up. And the why you do it, because some scriptures for those who is Rajagun, for some scriptures for those who Tamagun, some scriptures praising Shiva, some scriptures praising Kali, some scriptures praising yoga, some scriptures praising, karmic paths of, activities and, well-being life and, being generous man. So when you start reading all these books, you pretty much get messed up, because once you don't have a foundation and inner foundation, you can say inner, like clear path, you'll be bewildered by the scriptures. However, Saraswati Thakur's study of the scripture were not just become a Google. He discovered in scriptures, like his scriptures research were all leading towards Krishna consciousness, Mahaprabhu. So when they were talking to him on different ways, he would always come up with some great examples and defeating all the conclusions. Although like in the Brahman Vaishnava talk, he, after praising some Brahmanas, he actually interestingly said, yes, you are so much great as a Brahmanas. Although, you know yourself, being born in a Brahman family, for some reason, you have to have initiation at the age of 11 or 13, which means just a birth in your family does not mean you become one. However, let me ask you a question. All the greatest Mahajans, which you revere in the scriptures, everyone does, such as Prahlad, Hanuman. The Prahlad was a son of Asura, and Hanuman was a monkey. And, Bali, and so many others, although which you are revere, and not only revere, worship them in your daily prayers. How come you revere them? What for you revere them? Like Hanuman, he was of honor, technically monkey race. Why you revere him? Although if you read Ramayana, you'll see how greatly Hanuman spoke on spiritual topics, and Ram and Lakshman were super impressed. Oh, this is not just a low kind of person. What he speaks is so pleasant and so beautiful, and it's so religious that like they look at Hanuman and say like, where are you coming from? And so when you understand this, then what would be your answer? By just being born in auspicious family, you become professor. No, you can't become professor by being born in professor's family. You should become professor by accepting this path, studying it, qualification, and so many other things. So it's interesting when Saraswati Thakur organized Brajamandal Parikrama, where he came by car, there were, we can say, thousands of people. And now we have like problems how to accommodate like 50 people. Yes, that's a beautiful picture. How we can accommodate 50 people, the 10 Chinese or 20 Russians. And so we're like with Paramananda and Keshavananda, we're like planning and seating and like it becomes so much almost impossible. But Saraswati Thakur thing was like, okay, let's organize Brajamandal Parikrama, but let's bring thousands of people there.
It's like a military campaign.
Right. So his idea was like, we're bringing thousands of people. And just like, you'd be super impressed about Kumbh Mela. There were tents and there were different camps and mobile kitchens.
They always set up like a military operation, set up the camp, the kitchen, then move to the next place,
right.
Advance party.
Right. So it was super difficult at that time. Bullock carts and collecting food and, thinking it was like, where are these people going to bathe? How are they going to pass stool? Because everything has to be calculated when you deal with such amount of people. And, people would be coming in a very austere place. They would come by trains or something it wasn't like the world of cars. So the train would be overload and people would, the people to go to that parikrama would be a huge challenge. Saraswati Thakur organizing that, not only, and he also had a group of police coming. So they would come with a deity of Mahaprabhu, holding Mahaprabhu. Then they had, people, horses with flags, and then group of police and why? Because as entering certain areas of Vrindavan, they had heavy duty opposition of local Brahmanas because they've heard of glory of Saraswati Thakur and they felt dread because Saraswati Thakur wrote articles about how horrible is to use your shalagram shila, like you're technically showing your deities like show, like you're making money of showing the deities as a business. So they knew he's not an ordinary person and they weren't prepared to meet him with embraced hands. That's the thing. So he's like coming with a man, coming with a deity, and some of the people hate you, telling like, get over here. And we all know how horrible sometimes the so-called Brahmanas acting in religious places when they just like jump on you and try to reap you the money. And here they are like horses and people in white dresses and like at certain points you hate them, but you're also afraid of them. And you got a bunch of cops coming with the sticks. But but finally Saraswati Thakur had to come there. And what they say in certain of his lectures of Vrindavan, some of his people that knew him would say, well, why you're not speaking such a high topics? And he would say, I want to speak about devotion of Prahlad. Foundation of devotion. Because every house in Vrindavan, there'll be some kind of a Baba or Guru who'll begin you reading Bhagavatam about, Rasa Leela and Krishna dancing with gopis. So Saraswati Thakur didn't feel that he wants to be one of those other ones that present the same thing. He said, we came here to acquire devotion, to acquire that mercy. If we don't have a proper foundation, our spiritual life will be almost useless. So as you can understand, he was super alternative and everything. And so Govinda Maharaj, Guru Maharaj, gave him a lecture about Saraswati Thakur, called him Simha Guru. Simha Guru means Guru Lion, which was pretty much absolutely uncompromised. And, although we know, for instance, Gurudev could compromise with so many and, make them feel good. But Saraswati Thakur was so much uncompromised, even would he not compromise with himself. Because in a very early age, when he was a child, Bhaktivinoda Thakur brought some manga to his home. And Saraswati Thakur said, hey, I like this manga. And Bhakti said, didn't you like desire the manga before you offered to Giridhari to the Lord? And then Saraswati Thakur had like stroke in his mind. Yes, he thought, I lastly desire something which belongs to Krishna. And his idea was everything belongs to Krishna. And just the idea in his mind that I lastly desired something that was not offered to Krishna would make him not eat manga all his life. Can you imagine that? That's deep samskar. Oh, if there's something that not belongs to Krishna, that is not what I'm touching. So, I mean, inconceivably, we cannot really understand this psychological thinking of great pure Vaishnava like Saraswati Thakur, because we would think, oh, he was a scholar, or he was this, he was a religious leader, but that's not what he was. Actually, that is, we can say, an external, visible part of his nature, but invisible part of his nature would be in his deep relationship with devotees, such as Guru Maharaj and other devotees. So today is the Disappearance Day of Saraswati Thakur, and it's super touchy how Guru Maharaj described his disappearance. And Guru Maharaj would describe that, although he's been in Puri, spending his last days in Puri, and we know the external, I would say, condition of Saraswati Thakur was heart. And you'd be very much interesting, like, why is that? He was actually a young person, over his 60s, right?
Like 61, 62.
Yes, 61, 62. And people said he would have a heart condition. But what is the heart? It's the seat of the soul. So Guru Maharaj did not say, well, he passed out because he had a weak heart. You cannot call him a weak heart. But what we can understand from Guru Maharaj, his disappearance was separation from not only his separation, although sometimes he experienced that, separation of spiritual world that sent the servitor. And just like, at a certain point, the mission is finished, and now he has to go back to reality because we think this is reality. But in spiritual world, they think that is reality. And so when we say disappearance or death, we know death is something mundane because it basically connects with the memory lost. Why people are afraid to die? Because they're afraid to lose memory. With their memory, everything they have connected, the relatives, the money, the things. And another thing of people, death, fear, it's technically fear of future. Because they don't know what's going to happen in the future. And, everybody knows maybe I've done something wrong. So the future may not be the super bright. But that is like common mundane people who live in mortal world. When we talk about such a divine personality, as we can understand, he descended here to fulfill particular mission. And now it's time for him to come back. But as experiencing Haridas Thakur departure in Charitamritam, and Srila Govinda Maharaj's departure, as we all experience, we can understand his departure should be a part of his Leela, which means it has to have some message and meaning. So then Saraswati Thakur, under pretend that, Calcutta has better doctors, you should go back to Calcutta. Although he born in Purushottam and Puridam, and so happy being near Chatak Parvat Mat, because his original Mat is built on Chatak Parvat, on that Govardhan-like hill, and near the Jagannath. But Saraswati Thakur has been called for his last pastime. And what would be his last pastime? Because even his act of departure would be like incredible spiritual stroke awakening moment. So when he under pretend of like, you should see better doctors as Puri, not so many good doctors. You should go to Calcutta. He's coming to Calcutta with his disciples. And technically, he's got dragged by his disciples to Calcutta. Because at one point, they feel, we can help our Guru Maharaj with a doctor. At another point, is like Saraswati Thakur thinking, well, if I pass away in Puri, there'll be some program. but if I'll pass away in Calcutta, there'll be like huge preaching program. So even his leaving the body is indicate of huge awakenings. People in Calcutta, the newspapers, the Acharya of Gaudiya Math, they're like, there's a whole madness, and there's thousands of people come to him, and it's huge Sankirtan. So his passing was not a small thing. In Calcutta, it was an incredible struck. And even people who was firmly not so much religious, or the Kali followers or others, they were shocked by hearing the news. And thousands of people came to give his last darshan. And Guru Maharaj described that. And then he said, and then later, his body been taken by train to Mayapur with hundreds of people. They could not even like fit in. And his divine body were carried towards Bengal. And in the math which he established, you know, his samadhi has been giving. And Guru Maharaj is describing to the very last moment, he's saying that I was trying to follow that, you know, all the way through, to like keep saying and to control what's going on. And then when I saw samadhi has been docked, and, you know, in tradition, the samadhi was giving in the same day. And he said, I look at Saraswati Thakur, and he would not be looking like some kind of a person that left the body. He would be very calm, very peaceful, putting in samadhi, almost smiling, like appreciating and satisfied. And Guru Maharaj said, at that moment, I kind of freak out. I could not see his face coming to the sand. So Guru Maharaj said, and I can imagine that after Govinda Maharaj's departure, we felt something, we understood something. So that was incredible, almost like Haridas Thakur pastime, but even I would say more, because Haridas Thakur pastime were in a group of Mahaprabhu close associates. And Saraswati Thakur disappearance would be something that struck hearts of people of Bengal. And not only Bengal, he had followers and disciples all over India, all over the world. So that very moment happened today. And every time after Gurudev Vyasa Puja, the day after, we would come to Mayapur Yogpith and would be very peacefully sitting by his samadhi and pray to him that he would extend us preaching license. Because according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, your license has to be extended. It's not like you come into spiritual life and you're like there forever. No, if you are there forever, if you forever servitor. If you are coming to spiritual life, you have to renew your license every year. That's why we come to Guru Purnima time or Gurudev, because we come to India and we report to Guru and to Lord what have we done spiritually. You know, we understand, you know, how we deviate for certain things and how we like beg forgiveness and ask if our license can be removed. And then Nityananda Prabhu stamp our license through our gurus, and then blessing is going back to us. So at that day, we would come to his samadhi and very proudly we would chant that song, Prabhupada Padam. Because that song knows all the Gaudiya Maths, but as a Guru Maharaj's song, as I said in the beginning, link with Guru Maharaj, his understanding of Saraswati Thakur. Our own perception of Saraswati Thakur might be great, but that's not what we're excited about. So we would chant that, a glorious song of Prabhupada Padam in front of Saraswati Thakur. And sometimes we would see that Pujari or other Gaudiya would happily, internally satisfied smile. Because that song is, although it's known to all the Gaudiya Math, but it's not like a, you know, daily song and everywhere. So, but those who understand Guru Maharaj, glories of Chaitanya Saraswati Math, they would observe us chanting this song. And I would see many, many like Indian sannyasis, brahmacharis, they would be very proud at that moment. So sometimes they would even like sit down and chant with us, or giving appreciation look to us chanting this song. So that's what I want to end up.
Jai Srila Bhakti Bimal Avadhut Maharaj ki Jai, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Tirobha Mahamahotsav ki Jai. So Madhusudan Maharaj, can you speak something?
Maharaj, I'm here to serve, and if you ask, then we are happy to say a few words.
Yes.
Really, Maharaj, the exemplary talks of yourself and Maharaj this morning have covered, I mean, so much of the glories of Srila Saraswati Thakur, and you kept us on a cliffhanger. You said, oh, this cliffhanger. And I was wondering which part is going to be the actual cliffhanger that you mentioned later on in your talk, because it just seems that it's so many things. If they hadn't happened, we wouldn't be here today. And beginning with the mathematical equation of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur coming to out from his internal bhajan to the distribution of the Gauranga's message and through Bhaktivinoda, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur's heart has captured that message, has that message, then he's distributing that. But then step by step, there are so many cliffhangers. When Srila Prabhupada was coming to the West, then he had so much problem on the boat health-wise. Then then he came to the West. He survived the journey, if you like. And then in the West, almost, he's about to return to India. And then things changed around and he stayed with us. And then he's presented Krishna consciousness, had the opportunities, the open door, the doors opened for him, as it were, by Krishna's grace. And then when we've come to Krishna consciousness, or trying to come to Krishna consciousness, finding shelter and being sheltered, so many things came into place that we were able, from remote parts of the world. I mean, ourselves, we were in England at that time, rendering service, and definitely remote from India, especially somehow in those days. And how it is that we came to hear about Guru Maharaj and were then able to come to Guru Maharaj. And Guru Maharaj being backward pushing man, Srila Govinda Maharaj himself making him available to us, giving us access to Guru Maharaj, even though Guru Maharaj was backward pushing and feeling that, oh, this is not the time, it's not my time to come around the world. Srila Prabhupada has given everything. And so many kind of cliffhangers in the actual way that Krishna consciousness has spread around the world. What to speak of our own lives coming from nowhere. How did we come to Krishna consciousness? And easily we could have taken a different turn. Even when we'd heard about Krishna consciousness, we could have taken another choice at the junctions in life. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's appearance in the world and his distribution of Krishna consciousness, and then our fortune to come into that connection. Step by step, we see how remote it all is, a remote possibility. And when we add the course of time in one day of Lord Brahma, then Mahaprabhu himself as original avatari Mahaprabhu, Krishna as original avatari Krishna, they have come. And then this sequence of events, it is an extra reminder for us to really try to take to heart everything that has been given to us, this opportunity that has been given to us. And as Gurudev would say, when we have the connection of Guru Maharaj, when we have this connection, which is the connection of Srila Saraswati Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when we have rendered even a little service, then our future is guaranteed. But how long will that be? To some extent, that is in our hand. So it is also a reminder for us to try to take in our heart that message that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, hammering his fist on the table and trying to forcefully transmit to others. Why don't you understand? Understand this, take it seriously. And then at one gathering in Mayapur, when the pilgrims who had all gathered there, at the end of his talk, they're now leaving and going back to their homes. And then Srila Saraswati Thakur said, Why are you leaving me? This kind of expression that I've told all this, now stay, be devotees. Where else have you got to go? So, yes, Maharaj, you
don't cheat me.
Don't cheat me, yes. This expression, which Guru Maharaj noted very much in that talk.
Meaning him saying, why did we come together but for this? And now you're going to go away? And that's when he said, I say, because what, you think there's something more important than this? So I say, if your house is on fire, let it burn to the ground, because it's that house and everything in it that's keeping you bound in the world. So let it burn to ashes, but stay and dedicate yourself today. We can understand he is very convincing. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Saraswati Thakur ki Rupa Mahamahotsav ki jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Mahamsa Parivajaka Saraswati Sri Srimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Jai Saparikar Sri Sri Guru Gauranga Gandharva Giri Dhari Vyu ki jai. Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga ki jai. Namacharya Suharidas Thakur ki jai. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Sri Gaudiya Mat ki jai. Mayapur Dham ki jai. Sri Yogpit ki jai. Sri Gaudiya Mat ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat ki jai. Sri Gupta Govardhan ki jai. Ganga Devi, Jamuna Devi, Bhakti Devi, Tulsi Devi ki jai. Om Vishnu Pad, Vishwavaranya, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Madhusarja Vrinda ki jai. Jai Srila Bhakti Bimal Avadhut Maharaj ki jai. Bhakti Ranjan Madhusudan Maharaj ki jai. Seva Vrinda ki jai. Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Hero Bal Mahamahotsav ki jai. Nitai Go Premanande.
Sudhir Goswami Maharaj ki
Yes, I understand. Bring the flowers. No. The charja pranams. It's not in this book. How is that possible? Oh, here it is. Sri Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Vidito Gaudiya Gurvanvaye Bhato Banu Riva Prabhata Gagane Yo
Sankirtane
Mayavada
Mayavada
Timingilo
Timingilo
Uttara
Uttara
Gatan
Gatan
Udritya
Udritya
Jivaniman
Jivaniman
Krishna
Krishna
Prema
Prema
Sudha
Sudha
Bhakti
Bhakti
Gahana
Gahana
Sukam
Sukam
Pradat
Pradat
Prabhum
Prabhu
Tam
Tam
Bhaje
Bhaje
Jai Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Tirva Mahamahutavati Ki
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta
Would you like some flowers that I can find them?
Jai.
Jai. Bhakti Sudhir Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Jai. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj ki jai. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati ki jai. Srila Bhakti Maharaj ki jai. Srila Bhakti Thakur ki jai. Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupa Guru ki jai. Shri Rupa Saraswati Bhakti Raghunath ki jai. Shri Rupa Guru ki jai. Shri Bhakti Siddhanta ki jai. Shri Dham Navati Vrindavan Purushottam Dham ki jai. Shri Bhakti Gandhi Murti ki jai. Shri Bhagavatam Shri Santa ki jai. Shri Shri Krishna Gopinath Shri Radha Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. Shri Raj Govardhan ki jai. All the simple devotees ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat ki jai. Shri Bhakti Sudhir Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Shri Madhusudan Maharaj ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Saraswati Mata Acharya Vrinda ki jai. Shri Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. Simple devotees ki jai. Shri Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. Shri Saraswati Thakur Saraswati